So see, a lot of people do know that, right? But they don't know how to exactly approach them. So how did you really connect with these people? If you could shed some light on that.
Right, right. I think the best way to reach out to these people are LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the best platform because
Mhm.
over there, just search Kellogg MIM students or maybe Kellogg MIM. That's it, and
Mm.
click the people's button, and then you will see all the students who are currently in the MIM program. And because everyone is so busy out there, they might not have the time to actually answer your question or maybe even accept the request, right? uh, just drop in a small note, right? I mean, hi, I'm Ayush, and I'm really interested for the Kellogg MiM program. If possible, can I take 10 minutes of your time? That's it. I think that even that small note that is there would do great wonders in actually getting that request accepted. And once you talk to that person, you can form that connect and really understand how what is the life at Kellogg like.
Correct. So you did not know a lot of these people personally, right? So you reached out to them on LinkedIn and then eventually connected with them on a
Correct,
call.
correct. I didn't know anybody. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Perfect.
And I had this discussion with you, where I was I would say nervous. I was very nervous about the interview process because of my narratory skills that I discussed, right? And but what really helped is that I had around 12 to 13 mocks with you before the actual interview.
Definitely.
And I remember particularly asking you by the end that um, I think I asked you that give me random questions, throw me off my game, right?
Right.
And because I was that confident by the end of those mocks, right? So those mocks really helped me. I think the best part all about all my application was the interview.
So, hello everyone. This is Nirvan Gandhi. I am the founder of Applicant-X, and today we have with us Mr. Ayush Bansal. Ayush applied to Kellogg School of Management and the Booth School of Business with us for their MIM program, which is a Masters in Management program. Eventually, he got a admit from the Kellogg School of Management. And today we have him with us to tell us his story, right, about his background, his journey, and his approach to applications. And then finally, if he has any tips for any of you looking to apply to these schools. So let us welcome Mr. Ayush. Yeah, Ayush, why don't let's start small. Why don't you just give us a brief about your background?
Sure, sure, sure. Thanks, Levan, for having me here. To start off, during my school years, I think I would like to talk about my time in Tanzania. I
Mhm.
spent around 2 years in Tanzania while I was in fifth and sixth grade and seventh. Then I uh, then I was a part of the French exchange program while I was in my school back in India. And then further on, I started into my engineering, where I was part of different club leads. I was part of different organizations and leading some of them. During that time, I was also able to intern at Airtel and at Deloitte and appointee. And then in my last year, I was there in the HEC summer school program. And after that, I'm currently working in Deloitte as a supply chain consulting analyst, where I help clients digitize their supply chains.
Got it. So you had some international exposure, right? So I think one of those was the summer exchange program at HEC, correct?
Right.
And then you had some schooling experience in Tanzania as well.
Yep.
Got it. Got it. Perfect. So you've spent 4 years doing engineering, right, at Vellore. Do you think that was at all? I mean, how was that experience? If we can talk about that a little bit.
Right. So, I mean, to be very frank, I never had that, decision of doing engineering when I chose my engineering, when I chose my stream of PCM. But things led to it, and I was in VIT Vellore. But
Mhm.
if I talk about my time during VIT Vellore, I think I was very sure about one part is that after 6 months down the line, in my first year, I was sure that coding is not something which is a cup of my tea, right? And then I thought that okay, I want to shift my profile towards management domain, and that's how I really started doing my all extracurricular activities, even taking some of the courses in the curriculum because of the electives that we have, the flexibility.
Mhm.
And that's when I realized, that this I really want to do a master's degree, after graduating. So that was one moment. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So you decided early on, right, that you want to go into the management part, right? So when did you really seriously start thinking about this? In which year of your, undergrad?
Right, right. I think I've always been very serious about pursuing a master's degree in management.
Mm-hmm.
But to be as you asked it, when I was very serious, I think I would like to say in by the end of my fourth year, because when I started working,
Mm-hmm.
I realized that I am into consulting, but I'm currently in process implementation, right? And after that, I realized that I think in order to really make a shift into strategy consulting, which I was always aiming for, I
Mm-hmm.
really have to do an MIM because of the knowledge gap that I see among my peers. So I think after my fourth year, I was really serious about it.
Got it. Got it. So you started looking at schools after you graduated and when you started working, right, in your consulting role.
No, I think I was already sure of the school that I want to apply, right?
Okay.
To be okay about that, I was very interested towards the European schools first, right?
Okay.
Like HEC, ESSEC, INSEAD, these particular schools, and even LBS, right? But I think over the time I have had conversation with you and my other peers as well.
Mm-hmm.
One challenge that I was not able to really rationalize was the language barrier, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was very visible in my experience during my summer school as well. But
Mm-hmm.
I think I was still okay for it. But now that I see that I have to spend around 2 to 3 years in these universities, having that language barrier would be a bit of a challenge, right?
Right.
Although it would be a new curriculum, and another added-on challenge would be for me a language. I think I didn't want to have that trade-off, right? So
Right.
that's when I decided to move into in schools in US like Kellogg and Booth. Yeah.
Got it. Got it. So see, I also have to ask this question, right? Because a lot of people are thinking when they're looking to apply to these MIM programs, they are thinking, would it be better for them to, rather wait and do an MBA later on? Or maybe, let's jump into the MIM right now. So what did you have this doubt first of all? And if yes, then how did you, go for this? Why did you go for this?
Right, right. I think I did have that doubt because MIM is also an expensive degree, let's be honest, for my pocket at least, right? And I
Hmm.
really wanted to take up a right decision. But the only advantage of MIM is that it's a early career program, right? And
Right.
for me, I've always been dreaming about strategy consulting.
Hmm.
So I felt that, making that shift earlier, getting that education well before the other people are doing and making that shift, I think that would really give me a head start in terms of the experience of work experience in
Hmm.
terms of my strategy consulting. So I felt that if somebody is sure about the niche that they really want to work in,
Hmm.
and are looking to get that education really early on their career, I
Hmm.
think MIM would be the right choice then.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, I mean, it definitely gives you that head start and you move to a different location first and then start building your career over there.
Exactly.
Okay, and how did you narrow down your choices to these two schools? So we know you applied to Kellogg and to Booth. So why only two schools first of all, and then why these two schools as such?
Right, right. So as I've already talked about how I moved from Europe to US, right?
Correct.
And then while searching for schools in the US region, there were four schools that I think really stood out. First was Kellogg, of course. Second was Booth. Third
Mhm.
was Stepper, and the fourth one was Duke. So I was thinking that I'll apply in a very phased manner,
Mhm.
like taking two schools first and then other two schools. So I applied to Kellogg and Booth first, and basis on the result, I was thinking that if I do not get into these schools, I might apply to the other two schools as well, right? So talking about the first two schools, uh, I think Kellogg and Booth is a no-brainer, honestly, when we come to the brand name and brand equity, right? Uh, both of the schools are in Chicago. Both of the schools are in the in both are in Chicago, and most of my offices that I'm really targeting, like BCG, McKinsey, and Bain, are all there in Chicago, right?
Right.
So this was an added-on plus point for me. And
Mhm.
now, particularly talking about Kellogg, I think the community part was really, 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 standing out for me because I've been part of various different, nuances where I was in Tanzania, in France, and then back again in France in an HEC. I felt
Mhm.
that community really plays a long way because you're home, you're away from home, right?
Right.
And the community that is there in the college would be your family. So I felt that that connect with the connect with the students that I was able to create even well before being there. Like I actually reached out to some MIM students and I could see the connect. So that's one that I felt. And about Booth, one thing that I really liked was that the curriculum flexibility was there. So as there's a person who might be interested in strategy consulting, and at the same time they might really want to go into product or finance. So the flexibility of really designing your curriculum but that's what I read. Do not quote me on that, but that's upon my information. uh,
Right.
that flexibility is there, so that was another plus point for me if I look on into Booth particularly.
Got it. But if we talk a little bit about Kellogg, since we now are getting into that discussion. So, from my understanding, Kellogg is a 10-month program, right?
Right.
That you have. Similarly, for Booth, also, I think is like a 1 year, 12, 15-month
Something
program.
like that, yeah.
Um, Again, what is your opinion on this in terms of, again, don't you think even for you to get a head start, right, making that career move right now, but a 10-month program, do you think it's fine that it's a 10-month program? Do you agree with that, or do you feel like it would have been better had this been like a 2 year thing or something like that?
Right, right. So I feel that 10-month program is fine because okay.
Did it bother you is my question. Do you even thought about this? Like, did it bother you at any point in time that this is a 10-month program?
Uh, it did at some point of time because
Mhm.
while I was comparing European MIMs, they were
Mhm.
all 2 to 3 years long,
Exactly. Which is why I'm
and
asking this
over
question.
here it's 10 months, right? And I
Mhm.
was thinking that the amount of pressure that will be brought on to the students, and very frankly, I had this question asked in my interview at Kellogg. I asked this question to the interviewer. I said that
Okay.
this is a 10-month program. How would you want me to be as a person who's stepping into the first day of Kellogg, right? She
Mhm.
said that your journey starts from the day you get your admit,
Right.
right? Because this is a 10-month program and you really have to come prepared, right?
True.
And this is the conversation that I had with you yourself, yeah. Because you
Right.
said that that journey starts from the first day onwards, and plus this journey is very crucial because it's only a 10-month duration, right?
Right.
uh, and I feel at the end of the day the opportunity cost is also less if we
Mhm.
talk about 2 to 3 years and versus 1 year. But yes, that opportunity cost is leveraged by the amount of efforts you have to put in before the 10-month duration. So I think if a person who's really want to invest that 2 to 3 years,
Mhm.
have that experience of really being studying, I think they should target about these 2 to 3 years MIMs, and if they really want to hit the ground running, they really want to break into the industry really fast. I think 10-month program is the better one.
Definitely. I mean, the opportunity cost itself, I think, is a very compelling argument, right? When you
Right.
make for that. Okay, so I want to move a little bit towards your application, right? And the entire application process that you had in terms of the thought that you had behind this.
Right.
But before I even begin with this, right, I want to understand something about timelines. See, because a lot of people are thinking, when is the right time to start? Okay, in terms of, again, we know the deadlines are sometimes, and sometimes in September, October for R1, and then in January in R2 and all that. So when do you start preparing, yourself for this, right? Because of course you have to take GMAT, GRE and all that, and then you also have to write your essays and application and everything. So what do you think is an ideal timeline? What do someone keep in mind when they're applying to MIMs?
Right. Right. So I think because MIM is something which is looked the criteria of MIM is not just limited to GMAT, GRE, right? They
Mhm.
have all the other criterias like what have you have done outside the class, what have you done inside the class, and these all three criteria are very important. So I feel that profile building should have started at least 2 to 3 years before if you are actually thinking of doing an MIM, because the early career program you do not have those 5 years in the work experience that you can change your profile. So I feel that if somebody has an idea that they want to do an MIM, I think they should start building that profile in during their college years.
Okay.
And now coming to the deadlines, right? You were talking about the applications. I was very sure that I have to start early, because what I see is that most of the people struggle with the recommenders, right?
Mhm.
Because recommenders have their own time limits, they're busy with themselves, and that's the main point that I had with you as well, right? We want to close the LORs first, right?
Mhm.
As because they will take their own sweet time, they might have their own edits, they will make their own LORs, and they might want to have a discussion with me, right? So I think it's really good to start at least 2 to 3 months before the application deadline, so that
Mhm.
you also do not get stressed, and you give enough time to the recommender as well.
Got it. So did you start applying or considering applying to these schools 3 months before the deadline?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was already, looking to. I was already attending their webinars and really
Mhm.
understanding how they, how what all aspects are there in their MIM programs. And I think I started around 2 months before, 1.5 or 2 months before the deadline, and yeah, I think it went well.
Perfect. Perfect. So, okay. So now getting into the nitty gritties of the application itself, right? Let's assume that you've now decided that, hey, let me start applying to these schools, right?
Got it.
um how did you go about it exactly? What did you do first, right? How did you approach the entire application process till the time of, let's say, submitting the application? Okay, we'll come to the interview part later.
Okay.
Till the point of you thinking or deciding that, hey, let me start, to let me submit the application. Can you
Right.
just break down that process for everyone to understand how to go about it?
Got it. Got it. So I think there are essentially uh, four parts to the application, right?
Mhm.
The first is the LOR, the
Correct.
second is the essay, the third is itself the application, the other details that you have to fill out, and the fourth is the GRE GMAT score, right?
Right.
So as I talked about, right, I started off with the LOR first, because I really wanted to give the sweet time to the LOR, to the recommenders, because it's something that they're doing for me, and I did not want them to rush it out, right? And second, I moved down to essays.
Mhm.
Essays are also very important. I think it's one of the most important piece of the application, because uh, other than CV, this is the time where you can actually explain things that are not there on your CV in detail, right?
Right.
So that's the other part. And then filling out application, I think it would require some time, because there are some questions that really talks about what you want to do out after the MIM. I think that should be given enough consideration while writing the answers. And then moving on to GMAT, GRE, whatever score you have, you submit it to the university, and that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so what I want you to do, Ayush, is there are a lot of people who are applying to Kellogg, right, and who may apply again in future years as well. Uh, I want to understand more from you about how did you approach the two essays, right? So we know Kellogg generally. So in the first essay, they're asking about how did you solve a challenge, right? And in the second essay, they're asking about some varied or diverse experiences, perspectives that you have, and how would you enrich the Kellogg community through that. So we take this essays. How did you go about deciding which stories to pick, right? And what was your narration? What stories did you eventually pick for your essays?
Right, right. So I think talking about the first essay, which is about the challenge that you have been tackling. Uh, so I think this is the right time to really show your leadership skills,
Mm-hmm.
because of because at this point of time, if you really show your leadership skills, there'll be two points that you'll be satisfying with the question, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you really read the question, they said that what other criterias you what other where are other avenues that you're solving the challenges, right?
Mm-hmm.
Other from your neighborhood to, I think, boardroom, it's written that, right?
Correct.
And the second is what challenge you faced, right? So I particularly was looking into different as I've said that I've been part of various clubs and chapters in my college time, and even in internships. I was
Mhm.
trying to find out various challenges that I've faced, right? uh, and uh, and I really wanted to bring out my time from Winnoit IT, because over there I was part of that club for almost 2 years, and 1 year was itself as I was the president. So I had very conclusive content in the whole story, and I really wanted to point out different skills or different soft skills that I really wanted to show it through my essay, right? So to talk about the challenge that I faced, if that I have put it in my essay, is regarding the an event that we were organizing, right? So
Right.
it was a first time event that has never been occurred in my university, and at the end of the day, before the event, the sponsors and the mentors who were actually coming to the event backed out. So I talked about how I really tackled this challenge while there was COVID, and how I regained the sponsorship amounts, right? I think this was one challenge that I really showcased throughout the essay. And more than that, it's not just a challenge, it also comes up with how much risk you have taken. How had that challenge not been solved, what was what would have been the impact of that thing, right? So there are different aspects to that question which should have been, I think, a candidate should really dig deep, and not just go by the primary facie of the content of the question, right? Now talking about the second question, I think this is the part where you can show off anything that you have which cannot be mentioned in your resume, right?
Right.
So I think for me, it was very straightforward, right? First one was the time that I had spent in Tanzania,
Hmm.
and because in the whole resume you cannot really talk about your school experiences, right? But I
Correct.
think for me it was very relevant, because that's the first time I actually exposed myself to a new culture, and I
Correct.
was so young. So that really exponentiates the impact or the learning that I could have. So I wrote about that, and then I also talked about my French cultural exchange when I was in my schooling years, and I also talked about how sports have been a very inclusive part of my life, because I've been playing tennis for more than 16 years now, and I think most of the things really have impacted in my personal life as well as my professional life through the life of tennis. I've been coached, I've played various tournaments, I've played in different levels as well.
Hmm.
And I think there are a lot of, I think every sports person would be able to relate over here, that there are a lot of qualities that you can bring out from sports, right? So I talked about these three aspects in my second essay. Yeah.
Definitely. And I remember, when we were discussing these essays, I always thought, or I always think that when someone is applying to any B school, they should bring out something very unique and very personal, and something that they're really passionate about in their essays, right? And from the start onwards, we had this no-brainer about, how we should
Yeah.
definitely bring sports or tennis, right, as your passion into at least one of these two essays, right?
Right.
And definitely when Kellogg is talking about the entire diverse experiences that you've had, and right, gives you an opportunity to showcase your personality, and then
Mhm.
how would that enrich the Kellogg community? I think we knew that we want to showcase the global exposure that you have had, right from your schooling to the exchanges, and then coming it sort of tying it that to the sports that you've played, and then tying that to the entire Kellogg piece. Honestly, for me, when I was looking at these two essays, right, of yours, and even right now when I'm hearing the narration, the second one really stood out, right, because that was a game changer in terms of creating that narration or showcasing the personality that you have, right, or the different experiences that you have that you can really take and then contribute to the Kellogg community.
Right.
And I think, honestly, right, when we are applying to any of these B schools, I think that's one thing that should come out in either of these essays, right, either the first one or the second. But I think definitely the essays were a game changer, right? If I look at any of the other parts of your application as well, I think the both the essays, right, in terms of the challenges that you described as the president of a club. So you had a good leadership exposure there in the first essay that we could describe easily, and then in the second essay we had something good to tell.
Right. I think I want to add one more thing over here when we talk about the personal experiences, right? There's always this question that whether should I include my personal experience or my professional experience into essays, right?
Hmm.
I think for me, that whatever we discussion we have had, I think it all boils down to the qualities that you bring in and how personal the story is to you. It can be, at the end of the day, talking about my weight loss that I have did in my essays as well, and at the end, and I've also talked about my internship experience in booth essays. So I think it all boils down to the quality that you're bringing out of the situation. And I just really wanted to point out this question because I always had this question with you, like which one to pick, the professional experience or the personal experiences. So
Right.
yes,
I think we even discussed the weight loss piece, right? Whether we want to
yeah.
include that in the essays for Kellogg, right? And even the internship piece and all that. But
Mm-hmm.
eventually, I think, yes, definitely we went out with sports, and I think that was definitely a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Perfect. So let's move on. So let's talk about now the interview phase. Okay. So again, what
All
was
right.
the interview like, right? And how did you answer these questions? How did you go about preparing that? If
Right, right,
you
right, right,
prepare
right.
that a little bit.
So actually, I was not aware of this piece. And upon submitting the application, I was like, okay, fine, I'm done with the day.
Hmm.
But I got a ping that okay, I have to submit these interviews. Had have this interview. Uh, so I was first baffled because this was an AI interview, and I
Hmm.
have not had my luck with AI interviews when I was working, when I was interning with different companies, applying for different internship with different companies, right?
Hmm.
So now it comes to how I have prepared for these interviews, right?
Right.
So I actually went online. I went to Reddit. I scrapped the whole internet and understood what are the questions that they generally ask, right?
Right.
And I think I made a whole list of what questions that we have. And to talk about the interview, they ask three questions for 1 minute. You can speak for 1 minute, and then there's a 20-second gap where you actually frame the answer for the next question that they show,
Hmm.
right? So I think even after making the whole list of around 20 to 30 questions, it all boils down to that particular 3 to 4 minutes that you have in your life, because the nervousness that hits you, I think at least me, it was very much very visible on my face. But
Hmm.
I think the preparation of actually answering those questions promptly,
Hmm.
those 20, 20, 30 questions that I prepared really helped me because I was prepared for almost every scenario that could have been asked, right? And but yeah, at the end of the day, it was an interview, so you cannot take it lightly,
Hmm.
and you have to dress up well, you have to do everything, and you have to sit for that interview. And yeah, I mean, just give it as if you are actually giving an actual interview, right? And then to talk about it, my timelines after some. So this interview was given 4 days of period. I could have submitted post submitting my application. I had 4 days to submit this interview. I
Okay.
did it on my third day, and I think after 10, 15 days, I do not remember. I got a call. I got a mail from Kellogg that okay, you have an interview and you can schedule your interview in the next 2 weeks, whenever you want, right? So I think I discussed that with you, and I think we scheduled it around the end of September, right? I'm not sure. Yeah, end of September.
Hmm.
No, I think end of October,
Right.
right? Okay, I don't remember. Okay, I think it's end of November.
We took a.
So how did I prepare for those interviews, right? I have had this notion in myself that I'm not very uh, fluent speaker when it comes to English, right?
Okay.
And uh, and I had this discussion with you, where I was I would say nervous. I was very nervous about the interview process because of my narratory skills that I discussed, right? And but what really helped is that I had around 12 to 13 mocks with you before the actual interview.
Definitely.
And I remember particularly asking you by the end that I think I asked you that give me random questions, throw me off my game, right?
Right.
And because I was that confident by the end of end of those mocks, right? So those mocks really helped me. I think the best part all about all my application was the interview, because the interview was very very fluent, and it really felt like a conversation, and there were no ers, there was no buts, there was it was just a very fluent conversation between two people. And I think that was another game changer in my application.
No, and definitely, I remember between the first mock that we did and probably the 12th, 13th mock that we did, there was definitely a great transformation, right? that had occurred. But I think that was also because you were so desperate to work hard for it, right? You
Hmm.
really wanted to improve, and I think you did put your hard work, because I remember we were doing probably 2 3 mocks a day,
Yeah.
right? Just sort of understand how we can improve further. But I think definitely the first interview that we did and the last interview that we did, the last mock, there was such a great transformation. I could see that, right? That you had grown in confidence, and you could definitely assert yourself while you were speaking with the interviewer as such.
Right. 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 Right.
So let's get into the interview, right? How did that go? How long did it last, right? What were some of the questions that you had? And
Hmm.
did you do anything to prepare yourself before the interview?
Hmm.
Just walk us through that a little bit.
Right. Right. So my interview was at 11 p.m. in Indian time, right? And it was a 30-minute slot, right? And so before the interview, I actually followed one piece of advice was which was power posing, right?
Right.
Because I was so down with the nervousness that was hitting me. One thing that I followed was power posing, and before the actual interview, I power posed, I think, for 5 6 minutes before sitting for the interview, and then I logged in. I got into the Zoom call, and the lady who was there was already sitting in the call, right?
Just to interrupt you here a little bit, right? So for people who don't know, power posing is essentially a sort of a mind trick that you do, right, to just get some confidence before any important meetings or interviews and all that. There's a great TED talk, by the way, on that. So feel free to Google that and learn more about it. But yeah, please continue.
Sure, sure. Yeah. Guys, it's really, really helpful. Okay, now the interview is already sitting in the call, and that was the moment when it struck. Okay, this is the actual Kellogg interview that is going to take place, and I think it was fairly very smooth because she started with her introduction, and she started. She asked the first question that how are you, Ayush, and
So
tell
she's
me
a
about.
member of the admissions team. She's an alum. Who is she exactly?
Right. So she was from the admissions team.
Okay.
Yeah. And she asked me about my day and how am I doing and a brief introduction about me. So one thing that I felt was that the questions were very targeted from the resume. I
Okay.
felt I felt that she was very prepared. She have actually given a look to the resume, and she knew what to ask and how much to ask for that particular instances, right? I
Mhm.
think for me it was a very much directed questions, right, out of the resume, straight out of the resume.
Mhm.
So as I mentioned about my president leadership in my in my college, she had that question ready. That okay, Ayush, I see that you have been president at this club. Did you face any challenges? Right.
Mhm.
So this was the first question that she had,
Right.
and I think nobody's prepared for the first question, which is challenge question, right?
Right.
But yeah, I mean, due to the preparation, I was aware ki, okay, what I have to say, right?
Mhm.
And so then we came to I think the HEC part where
Mhm.
she asked me that how was this experience, right? And she also talked to me about the the strengths, what strengths you have. And I think three major questions that I think have been asked from me was why Kellogg, right?
Mhm.
Second was why MIM, and why now. I think these three questions are very, very crucial during the interview. I've seen many interview, experiences on GMAT Club, and I think every GMAT Club experience talks about these three questions. And I
Definitely.
think these three questions were asked to me, very straightforward, right?
Mhm.
Um, and um, and yeah, I think one interesting question by the end of the interview was that any part of the application that we were not able to cover, is there anything that you would like to say, right?
Mhm.
And now, to think from a candidate perspective, we really put out everything that we have in the application, right?
Mhm.
So but this is a blind interview. So what is a blind interview? The interviewer does not have the application. She or he is only have handed a resume, right, of the candidate, right? So I talked about my time in my schooling years because that was not in there in my application, and I extrapolated it to the Kellogg community.
Mhm.
And I think the interview ended by me asking her a question, that I have already mentioned, that how should I come prepared, for the Kellogg Kellogg School of Management. And yeah, and I think then she dropped an email of hers to if I have any questions. And yeah, that was the interview experience.
And how long did it last?
It lasted till 30 minutes, dot 30 minutes.
Right. And I think you had a 30-minute slot
Yeah,
booked.
yeah,
Right. Got it. Got it. So essentially, I think it's very important for anyone who's giving the interview to definitely go through the resume, right? Because that is one piece that they have with them,
yeah,
right? And there will be detailed questions, or there can be detailed questions about that. And
yeah,
apart from that, why Kellogg, why now, why am I? All these questions are definitely, the bread and butter of any interview, right? So
yeah,
it's
definitely.
something that will come in your interview. Perfect. Okay, so I think we've covered the entire application process, right? Are there any tips as such that you have for anyone who's applying to Kellogg, let's say right now? uh, what would you tell them that, hey, these are the things that you should focus on, or this is how you should go about your application? Anything that you would like to share?
Right. So I think one of the biggest tip that really helped me enhance my application was
Mhm.
uh, talking with the current students of MIM.
Okay.
Right. I think the information is limited on the website, but the real ground information I think will be given by the MIM students, and that really enhances your application because there are some key intricacies that you can actually mention in your essays. Talking about some courses which are not mentioned on the website, or maybe just experiences of how the life is in actual student in Kellogg, right? So
Mhm.
I think tip number one would be to actually talk, network with people, and understand what is the curriculum like and how is the life at Kellogg.
Mhm.
Second is that I think I had this discussion with you also, and you told me that resume is the most important part, which currently people do not give it much importance, right?
Mhm.
And I think this is very important in Kellogg perspective because the interview is blind, and it is all about your resume. I think being very thorough with your resume, being very thorough with the whole resume format is very important. And third, I feel is that I think be very cognizant of the life incidents that you've had in the past, because
Right.
there might be a very small incident which can actually have a very great impact, but it's just a memory that is there in the brain, right?
Right.
So while actually ideating the whole essay part, whole application, really sit with yourself and understand what all have been there back in the past, and how can that incident be related to another incident, and that could form a story. So I think these three tips are very important.
Got it. And see, you also mentioned about, the very important thing that you said was to connect with people, right? Who are either a part of Kellogg right now or who have graduated from Kellogg. So see, a lot of people do know that, right? But they don't know how to exactly approach them. So how did you really connect with these people? If you could shed some light on that.
Right, right. I think the best way to reach out to these people are LinkedIn. I think LinkedIn is the best platform because
Mhm.
over there, just search Kellogg MIM students, or maybe Kellogg MIM. That's it, and
Mm.
click the people's button, and then you'll see all the students who are currently in the MIM program. And because everyone is so busy out there, they might not have the time to actually answer your question, or maybe even accept the request, right? uh, just drop in a small note, right? I mean, hi, I'm Ayush, and I'm really interested for the Kellogg MIM program. If possible, can I take 10 minutes of your time? That's it. I think that even that small note that is there would do great wonders in actually getting that request accepted. And once you talk to that person, you can form that connect and really understand how what is the life at Kellogg like.
Correct. So you did not know a lot of these people personally, right? So you reached out to them on LinkedIn and then eventually connected with them on a
Correct,
call.
correct. I didn't know anybody. Yeah.
Got it. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So just to wrap it off, right? Let's understand the final piece in terms of a timeline and how it works after the interview, right? So how many days do you need to wait for the decision? And then what happens, let's say once you get an admission offer, are of course required to pay a deposit fee, right? So how much time do you get for that? What is the fee that they are asking you to deposit, right? And are there any other things that happens after that? Maybe the admissions team are reaching out to you, or what exactly is in store for people who are now waiting after the interview?
Right, right. So with Kellogg, the decision date is already mentioned while you actually apply, right? So if you let's say you submit your application on 30th October, which was for me, the decision date was for me for 13th December, right? And I remember I was on my phone after 6 p.m. Checking for my emails that if I have received the yes or no from Kellogg, right? So you get that notification, you get an email, you get a letter which says that you have been admitted to Kellogg. Post that, they ask for a deposit, which is
Right.
of around $450 tuition deposit. I think that can be done till 10th of January, in my case. And they have actually organized a webinar with the current admitted students of that round.
Okay.
So we were there. We actually connected with. We all introduced ourselves, and then we had some conversations around how it will be at Kellogg. And one of the professor who was going to teach us in the class was there, and even someone from admissions team was there. After that, I think they formed a Slack channel where everybody could connect in the MIM cohort. And post that, I think I think pretty much that's it till now. And there are some sessions planned with the international student advisory committees. So they'll help us with the visa process, and they'll help us with I-20 and DS-160.
Got
So yeah, that is lined in the bucket.
Perfect, perfect. So thank you so much, Ayush, for explaining all these things so patiently and getting into the details of what is involved in the entire application process of a master's in management program, and specifically getting into the details of the Kellogg application piece. Right. Thank you so much, Ayush, and it was a pleasure to have you here and to talk with you.
Thank you so much, Navan. It was a pleasure talking to you. Thank you so much.
Okay.